Welcome to the Meditation Ward. My name is Nadia, and I'm excited to bring you this podcast. Every week, I talk to interesting people who also meditate. Stick around for the episode after this for a guided meditation. Are you trying to create your own meditation practice? Well, you're in luck because in January, we're offering a live class starting the first Sunday in January for 7 weeks. Each week, we're going to be offering new tools to help you create a practice that you love. This is a lifelong gift for yourself or for a friend, and I'm really excited to lead you in it. Go to themeditationward.com to sign up. Please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcast because it helps more people find us, and we'd love to share this podcast with more people. We hope you enjoy the episode. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Meditation Ward. My name is Nadia, and I'm so lucky today to have a friend of mine, Mustafa Shakir, on the show. He's an actor from small productions like Martini Time Talk Show to huge ones like Marvel Comics, Luke Cage, and he has a new album up on Spotify.
Yes.
And something that's just so incredible about Mustafa is that he leads with loving kindness. We met about 16 years ago in little acting classes in Mary Margaret's house, getting to work one-on-one together. And you've just always been so positive, playful, generous, and it's kind of fun today, hopefully for you, because we're not here to just talk about your acting career, but your
Yeah.
mystical side and how that has affected your life and your career and anybody that like comes into your pathway.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. It's
Absolutely.
crazy when
Absolutely.
I was
And
doing the math. I was like 26, 27 when I was working with him one-on-one, and you just kept going hard.
it just flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the arts have just called me and called me and called me and called me. And so I just kept answering. It's like I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you say
Yeah.
that, like, what do you mean it's like calling you and you didn't have a choice? Because I keep getting called to different things that I think are my things, and now I'm trying to find ways to bring them all together. But it's hard to actually know for me. So, what's your experience?
Well, the truth is, I'm like you too. It's like I get called to all these things. I'm like a multi-hyphenate for sure. I remember one time though, I had like this big agent meeting, I was in between agents, and she was like, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." Just like 3 minutes into the meeting, and then I'm like, "Yo, well, I do music, I dance, I da." And she was like, "Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm." And I was like, her energy was not giving me like, I like that you do all these things. She was like, well, you need to focus. And I was like, and then the meeting was over 2 minutes later, and I went home feeling like, oh, that was the wackest energy ever. But I sat there for a little while and I was like, she's right. She's like, you gotta, basically what she said after that was like, you gotta focus on one thing, let it catch fire, and then you can take that one torch and add that fire to the rest of the things you're doing. But if you try to do all these things, nothing catches fire, and you just frustrate yourself and prolong the process. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to feel it. But I went home and I absorbed that, and I was like, you know what? That was shitty. I want her to be my agent. Right? And so I told my manager, like, I was like, force the issue. Like, that's what I need. And I took that advice, and everything changed. Everything
Yeah.
changed. I was able to like then, obviously create a torch and then put that torch to other things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting because that was a really good way of putting it. I used to have people tell me all the time, like, you need to focus on like one project, even if it was within my acting or career or kid shows or my music and stuff like that. And I was always like, I I can't. All these parts make me stronger in each other's ways. So it's really cool that That's a really awesome perspective that you worked hard and I guess you chose the acting path and now you have
Yeah.
the space and time to do like music and dancing. Do you still dance?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's for me. But like, it just leaves me the room to do all the things that I want to do. But I still follow that advice, like where mindfulness is like you do have to focus on one thing at a time, but you can keep, all the balls in the air. If that makes sense. You only use one ball at a time, but if you get a rhythm, it's always going to be one ball. No matter how
Yeah,
many you have. Yeah. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I'm always so lucky. Every conversation I have is just so like eye-opening in a different way. I love that analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to before your acting career, you
Mhm.
already had some practices that people didn't really know about you in mindfulness or in meditation or in mystic worlds. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, like I think the thing that has been the longest going thing is like my connection to Yoruba tradition or animism, West African faith, and astrology, the occult. That was always how I sort of filtered life, my perspective anyway. And so it was always there, but it's not something that I was screaming, you know. I made a lot of decisions based on astrology, timing of things, and so forth. And also, like, I think that's what helped me to really say, well, the arts are for you, because I was going to go another path. I was trying to save my family. I needed to make money. So, and education at academia really like respected me, and we had a relationship. So I was going to do in law. I was going into international and business. Um, but when I looked at my chart, I was like, and then I felt what I felt in connection to those things. I was like, I'll die slowly with a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? If I do this other thing, but it was like, if this might be the longer path, but this will feed my heart, and this will really be a journey that ultimately my soul will be happy for. And so yeah, it was the chart reading that really was like, you're an artist, bro. I know you want to do all these other things, but that's not what's going to make you like buzz. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
So
interesting. Like the law path, my boyfriend, I met him when he was in law school, and now he's a
mhm.
touring musician. He plays pedal steel and dobro mandolin, like all these things for a country artist. And I got
Wow.
him a chart reading as a gift one time. I was like, you may not care, believe it, but just have fun with it. And she told him, she was like, you're creative. She was like,
Mhm.
like you can do this, but like you're an artist, you're creative, and now he's trying to figure out like how to pass the bar at the same time as touring as a musician. But it's like been so beautiful to see some of that stress fall off of him
Yeah,
of being
yeah.
a lawyer and all these stressful things because he has something that he loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feeds you like nothing else. And at the end of the day and the beginning of the day, it's about that food, because no matter where you get, there you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so good for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. What's done is done. And what's
Hmm.
here is here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your meditation or practice like?
It is varied. I've come to see a lot of different things as meditation. So, so dance can be meditation. Running can be my meditation. Transcendental sitting still, doing nothing can be meditation. Like I try to be meditative as often as possible. So even when I'm like doing my music, I used to like there was used to be like this tension behind it because there was this desire and this push, and then like I learned how to, or still learning how to relax into the creative process of that, and that in and of itself is a meditation, because then like you're out of the way, and then you can let this stuff happen, and as long as you create that space between you and the identity, your identity, I feel like you're in a meditative space. So that's the goal for me, is to make it all a meditation,
Yeah, like
if that makes sense.
it
Yeah.
does. Like when you're in the zone, even in high school, I'm like volleyball. It's like once you get into this place where you're just so in the moment that you tackle everything. Or I used to have a coach that was like with serving, like visualize the ball going over the net. Visualize the ball going over the net. Always cracked me up then. And it's like, oh, yeah.
Right. It's funny how that happens. Like you get all these keys early on, and you're like, okay, visualize, and but like later on, you're like, oh, visualize the ball going over the net,
Yeah.
because that's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you
it's a beautiful thing.
feel like you manifested part of your career or what you're
Yeah,
doing now?
I manifested everything. I'm the alpha and omega of my experience. Yeah, like good, bad, and different. It's all me. So yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
did that start more so after the agent that lit a fire under your butt, or was that something that because there's a difference between like the push and the visualization. Um, yeah, how does manifesting work for you?
Well, I feel like that was just a part of the journey to what I had already intended a long time ago. And that was just a pivotal moment, you know? But yeah, I had, yeah, it's like, you say to the universe, hey, I want to get over there, right? From point A to point B. And then like you really have to let go. And then all of this stuff is not a straight line, as we know. We've seen the memes, right? But it's this crazy like meandering. So like, yeah, that was a part of it. But I definitely intended on having self-expression be the thing that, leads me and feeds me,
Yeah.
you know,
With
on the
your
highest level
acting work,
possible.
like
Yeah.
back in the day, like we were practicing, we worked with a private teacher and then we got to overlap. Do you still practice acting and like take classes or anything, or you just kind of show up and do what you do?
I realized that a lot of that, like I think you go to class to figure out that you don't need classes.
Yeah.
Like classes ultimately are to break free of like, you know what I mean? Like boxes are so that you know that you can break a box, because ultimately, like I feel like when I go to each project, they tell me that the project tells me what it needs, and I can't pre-game that. I just can't. I mean, some artists they do, they get all their notes and to each his own, it takes all types. But like for me, I like to show up and be present when I'm there, like the instructions come up at the same time. And then I'm there in a moment, it's fresh, and then it's like a ride and it's fun and you know what I mean? It's not like all this work and tension. That works for me. I go so far as to say it could work for everyone, but like, like I said, it takes all types.
Yeah.
You know,
It could work
you
for
gotta flow.
everyone and almost everything.
Thing,
Yeah.
exactly.
Taking that
It's
pressure
like,
off and showing
yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah, just be there when you need to be there.
Yeah. One of the things because, I went to NYU and Strasbourg for 3 years and film and television studios and improv
Wow.
and then Mary Margaret as well. And one of the things I loved with Mary Margaret was learning that if you don't understand what's really happening, you're kind of faking. And the more you really understand what it's about, you don't really have to do anything except just understand and be in the understanding.
Empathy. That's my secret. Like just if you understand the story, just empathize with your character. You know what I mean? Sit in there. I mean, I think that's the most gorgeous part about it, because then it really extends itself to life and empathy with people in general, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a insane workout life, as I can tell online, and like your fitness levels. And you talked about how running can be a meditation and all that, but I'd love to hear a little bit of how you've kept up with your physique and all this work that you do to stay healthy.
The funny thing is like, yeah, I mean, it's healthy, but it's like to maintain a resonance, like an energy, you know? because I'm still learning. I'm still upping my game. Like, I'm vegan, but I'm like just at that point where I'm like, okay, I can't eat any more processed vegan things. You know what I mean? Like going like there's always evolution. But in terms of the physicality and those disciplines, I had a teacher back in the day who taught me motion is synonymous with thought, right? And then like sort of piggybacked on Einstein saying you can't solve a problem on a level that you created, right? So you can't solve a thought-based issue challenge on the level of the mind. So the physical aspect for me is a way to deal with the mental. So like what I can't think, I can eradicate through like burning the energy off. It's the same thing in yoga where you like stay in the position long enough and you feel the trembling and you burn off the tapas or whatever that is, that energy that the ego uses to sort of entrap you. So that's what it is for me, is to stay in to burn off the excess and stay centered. Um, yeah, and the more I can push myself, the more I can control my mind. Like my mind is like, no, no, stop, stop, and I'm like, I'm not stopping, and I go 10% more. Then that same thing applies when I'm in a situation, I'm talking with someone and they say something that I don't agree with or doesn't agree with my I have space between me and them because now I've got this discipline where what's tough doesn't feel tough like that. You know what I mean? So that's my way of really being able to show up and be present in the world, is to take myself through. And I think that's a large part of why a lot of us suffer, is because we don't suffer enough, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have to take
Yeah.
yourself through mindful, purposeful suffering in order to condition yourself to deal with whatever combats you, you know what I mean, or comes at you. So that's why I stay on it. And then it just becomes like this way of life. Like your body's like, let's go. And you realize you're an animal. You know what I mean? You're a creature, and that creature is here to move. You're not supposed to be sitting in front of screens and like supposed to is not the word I meant to say, but in addition to doing those things, you have to like feed the creature. If you don't feed the creature, which was not born into all of this stuff that we place it in, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I stay on that primal grind. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's pivotal.
Yeah. I guess when yeah, thinking like some days it's hard for me to get out of the house, right? But if you get stuck in those um, systems, it's like I guess you become like a caged animal instead of one that's running around fiercely and claiming and taking and doing what is fun and good.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
and it's the mind body, psyche soma connection. So if you don't do that with your body, you can't do that with your mind.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, to be sure that you're being the most clear and receptive transmitter, you have to, you know, manage that state,
Yeah.
At least that's what I'm doing anyway.
And there's something also about a hard vinyasa class, and something that I talk about when I lead vinyasa. It's like you're in this pose and it's really uncomfortable. And it's my job to make you uncomfortable, because this is where you have the conversation between your mind, between your breath, between your body. Like, how are you going to get through this? What works for you when you get really uncomfortable? And it sounds
Yeah.
like once you push past that, then you find another level of discomfort to push past.
Yeah, and then and then also you create a little space for yourself too. You know what I mean? Like between you and the feeling of like flinching when it gets uncomfortable, and that's key for me. You know what I mean? Like to not flinch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really cool.
yeah,
And you love to travel. And
I
speaking of
do.
empathy and like work, like being in other countries, probably not knowing all the conversations or like languages. What do you love about travel?
My ultimately like my favorite thing about travel is like the sameness. It's like no matter where you go, it's kind of the same. Even I mean at the core of it. And I think, a lot of human psychology, at least societally, we always focus on differences so much, and I feel like that thing like really creates a divide between us, obviously. But there is a real basic similarity to us that I don't care what culture you're a part of, that I've recognized, and that's kind of cool. But not to homogenize everybody to be like, oh, we're all one, because that's also a pigeonhole. I like difference too. The beauty of how someone sees the same thing differently. And expresses it and plays with it. And I feel like I've been traveling since I was 12. Like, I've been fortunate enough to see the world since I was 12. So it just made me, I wouldn't even say tolerant is not the word at all. It's made me curious. It made me curious about humanity, as opposed to like, um, the other word, sort of like cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we use those as polarities.
Do you remember your first airplane ride? That came up in my head.
Mine, yeah, I fucking flew to Narita, Japan the first time.
Wow, that must
Yeah.
have been a long flight. How old were you?
I was 14, 14, yeah, 14, and it was 22 hours.
Wow.
22 hours on a plane. I remember I felt like I was gonna lose my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I went to sleep and woke up. I had like two lives, and we still hadn't landed, and it was my like first time on a plane. So
Yeah.
yeah.
One time I was on an airplane and I pack food for myself. I travel like I'm seven. I take different snacks. I take some coloring books sometimes. Like I've got to make sure I've got 100 things to do. And I offered the person next to me half of my sandwich, and he said yes. I was like,
Wow.
no. I was
That
just being
is cool.
polite. Yeah, I was like, I was just trying to be polite, and now I lost half my sandwich. And then sometimes I see people next to me with like boxes of Skittles, and I'm like, I wish they would ask me if
Offer
they
me,
could just
come
pour a
on,
Skittle,
universe.
pour a Skittle in my hand, just a couple Skittles.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
You didn't mean to. You wanted your sandwich. Well,
yeah,
don't people please. That's the message there.
yeah. Unless you want to, take care of
Unless you
yourself.
want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts. Facts.
What is your top two places you visited and top two places you'd like to go?
Ugh. Top two places I visited. You know what? A Big Sur is magical. I mean, a lot of, we as Americans, oftentimes, we don't realize how beautiful America is. We always think, oh, I need to go somewhere far to see something beautiful. But like Big Sur up there, the northwest coast of America is just like jaw dropping. I think I almost like drove the car off the road just looking at all the beauty, hiking through those forests, those big redwoods, and all of that energy, and like the feeling when you're like stepping on the floor of the woods, and then you can feel that it's not solid. It's like there's a whirl in there. Like, you know what I mean? The echoes. It's like oof, sort of muffled, like a drum. I was just like, yeah, it was a very beautiful experience there. Um, let's see. Number two, may I would say Gambia. Had like a magical experience in Gambia.
I've
Um,
never heard
I
of
rem
Gambia,
Yeah,
actually.
Gambia is on the west coast of Africa. It's like just above, just below Senegal. I don't know if that helps, but it's on the west coast. And yeah, I mean, yeah, there was so many beautiful things that happened on that trip, but I just remembered sitting on the beach with these like people I just met, and they had nothing, but the level of calm in their bodies. Like I was a New Yorker and I felt the New York in me. I mean, I'm a New Yorker, but you know what I mean? Like my body was buzzing and just not sitting and I just remember that looking at them and they were as still as the sand or as still as the tree. You know what I mean? It was like They had no worries, but they had nothing. And I just said, wow, this is a message. This
Yeah.
is a message. You know, they were at peace. And and when I when it was time to eat, they all took this one piece of bread and like broke it and everybody ate. And yeah, it was love. It was love. So very, very impressionable in the
Yeah.
moment. Yeah.
Also too, because the more we have, the more we want, because we're trying to find happiness in the next thing. Because impermanence, everything you have starts to wither, starts to become less lovable. Um, Not people, but like objects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they don't have
Yeah.
that
Distraction.
choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go?
Oh, two places. I want to go to the Maldives before it sinks. It's sinking at a crazy rate. Yeah, and it's a beautiful like continental shelf right there. Like you can walk out into the ocean for a long time before it drops off. Um, Interested in that, and I haven't been to Brazil yet, so I get to go to Brazil, and yeah, I already know that I'm gonna be possessed when I go there.
Yeah.
You know, I already know it. Of
How have
course.
you found that all the work that you do for your mind, for your body to show up in the present moment, to like live freely in those moments? How do you feel like that affects the people around you, if at all?
I think everywhere I go, I mean, and this is where I'm at with it, right? Because I used to want to change the world. I used to want to be like, before art, before all that. Um, that was the focus. I wanted to be proactive, but I feel like as I've come to understand things better, at least for me, that the best thing that I can do for the world is, you know, uh, increase my vibration so that wherever I go, that I become infectious. You know what I mean? Rather than professing, just embodying and being. So yeah, man. Like I used to be like, you know what? This might help, blah blah blah. Now, like for instance, I'm just at the restaurant with everybody else, and they see me order the food that I order, and they're like, they look at me and they look at my food, and they're like, "What's that about?" And conversations start. You know what I mean? And then without me preaching to people, I give them some information about what it is I'm doing, and then they look at me, and then they go, "Oh, okay, there is something that is different about you," and then sort of that creates its own thing. And I've had so many people in hindsight tell me, you've helped change my life. After having this conversation with you, and it's not specifically for that, for the feedback, but that's how it works. You know what I mean? So, viral is literal in the sense that, you be the change.
Yeah.
Cliches are cliches because they're true.
Yeah. And people have, I just got my blood work done the other day, and my protein is great. And I also don't eat animals. And, there's a lot of people that think you can't be as fit, you can't be as strong as you are if you're not eating animal protein. So that must kind of shock them for a second at first, too.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. They're like, what? Oh yeah, no. But then you just go like, you understand. You're like, look at gorillas, look at look at elephants. The biggest animals, the strongest animals don't eat flesh. The
Yeah. And
literal biggest and strongest animals on the planet don't eat flesh. And the strongest man, according to the contest, is a vegan
yeah.
right now. Yeah, he's lifting boulders and shit. So it's like the science is there. Game Changers. They made a great documentary about it.
I
But
saw it.
people will change at the rate that they're forced to by discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I follow this Instagram page called Veg News, and they're always updating about, new places that are offering new vegetarian options, and how a lot of movie stars are starting to open like restaurants. I think Kevin Hart and some other people
Yeah, he
to
has. Yeah.
help like influence that. Um, Europe, I think, is so much more open to that than America is. Like when I read about stuff, yeah, what is that like when you're in other countries?
You know what? I don't think America is not unwilling. It's just there's so many people. Like the America's, problem is that it's 350 million people there in one country, and we try to like find consensuses with all of this variety, and then that's make this very difficult. It's an experiment that we shouldn't sort of like hold up beside these other countries. They're like, look at what New Zealand's doing. I'm like, yeah, it's 5 million people and it's a tiny little island. Don't
Right.
compare the two, or Ireland or France. There's just, if we want to compare the whole of Europe, I feel like it might average out to the same because, between Austin and California, which is the mecca of all things new and that inform the rest of the world, and various other spots, Atlanta, Minneapolis, and New York specifically, you see, but the thing is, it's not a consensus movement. But if you see the individuals and then see that those individuals within the collective like context, there's a lot of people doing stuff in America. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But here they're more willing to make it legislate like a legislation. You know what I mean? Like, bigger moves, which I think is great. And it's a large part of why I don't mind hanging out here too, because like, yeah, we are actually thinking about the people, and it is homogenous enough for us to sort of make decisions that do affect the people in a positive way, like universal health care and crazy stuff like that, um, so yeah, I think, yeah, so there's a point within a point, I guess.
Yeah. That is another interesting thing that you brought up that opened my eyes again is that looking at it in smaller areas instead of one giant country that we are. Because when Richmond, I don't know if you've ever been to Richmond, Virginia.
I have.
I lived there for 5 years. I have a business there. It's a great city. And whenever we
Mhm.
go anywhere, I don't really have to worry about pre-looking at the menu because everywhere is going to have an option that is going to be available to vegetarians and vegans.
Mhm.
Whereas when I went to Myrtle Beach, all you could get was a sandwich with toppings. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, we can do vegan. I was like lettuce, tomato, like banana peppers, which I don't like, mustard, and it's like,
Right.
oh, there's certain areas, like I guess like little countries that have these things.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other,
I mean, yeah, I mean, like it's hard to get vegan food in Italy, but Amsterdam is not, but everybody everywhere. I've traveled a lot of places. It's spreading everywhere.
yeah,
It's getting easier and easier. And I've been at it long enough where I've seen an arc of change. So it's looking good. It's
yeah,
looking good. We're in the beginning stages, and so I'm just sort of like allowing for that because a lot of it is like, the push toward like processed foods like Beyond Meats and Impossible. It's like this tastes just like a regular burger. It's like, but it's probably worse than a regular burger. But it's like you've got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? It's a new
right.
toy. We'll figure out how to flip it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And even when we're
So
doing that, we're still cutting down less rainforests and
that as
having a
well.
climate
Yeah.
effect as well. But yeah. And then you're not healthy again because you ate way too much of it. And then you have to find your balance again.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. And so that's life. That's a spiral. You should always be like challenged. Don't sit still. Nothing else is. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Um, I said we weren't going to talk about career, but of course, I'm curious. What is it like when you're like filming a whole series and you're kind of in one place for a while, just working? Um, how do you take care of yourself? And do you love that part of your job or life?
It can be great. It can be great. It really, I've learned how to do things as you go, as you do. And sometimes it's great. It's like you can make it like this incubation chamber for like of regiment. You know what I mean? Where you like, I'm here to do this, and so while I'm doing that, I'm just doing this other thing to support that. and that's a meditation. You know what I mean? You create a hum from the momentum that you can build in that way. And yeah, it's a great way for me to focus in on things. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be practicing more guitar, for my downtime. So I'll have it in the trailer. Um, so when those moments where you're hurrying up and wait, instead of like worrying about the wait, you just, strum the guitar. And so like it's a way of like interweaving your life together in a way that sort of makes sense and is holistic. And that's an ongoing practice, obviously. But yeah, I'm doing it. I'm
Yeah.
practicing,
Yeah.
so to speak. Yeah.
And you're at a level now where you can tell them, this is what I eat, this is what I need to be a functioning.
It's still a struggle, man. I'll tell you that. It's job to job. Some jobs like I love going to Canada. Canadian jobs are the best when it comes to those things. Like they will take care of you. Americans, like somehow those productions, you tell them and they'll still somehow like think that I'm 210 pounds. Like, don't feed me a big salad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need food. So like it requires tweaking, and I'm even with that, I'm like, okay, so I need to go in and like strangle a few people first as I smile and tell them this is what I need, right? And
Yeah.
then, then that's when you get what you need. You gotta, unfortunately, sometimes like just, make a stink, and then they're like, and then you be nice later.
Yeah. I can imagine that
Yeah.
after people meet you and see how tall and strong you are, they're like, I don't want to make this guy mad. This guy plays villains. Like, I don't want to
Right.
make him mad.
Feed him the trees and barks that he likes, please. Thank you.
I'd love to talk
Yeah,
with you about music for a second too,
let's do
and
it. Let's do
about
it.
showing up on the set as an actor, just ready to be informed and go with it. As far as music goes, do you pre-write? Do you show up and create on the spot? Is it a mixture when you're doing the words, not just the sound background stuff?
Well, like like currently I am, I get music. I have a partner. He makes the music. Well, he actually does all the programming and stuff, and but obviously we ping pong ideas off of each other. But yeah, we'll get something, and I'll write to a vibe. I'll write to an idea, and I'll record it, do some scratch tracks, throw it to him. He'll tell me what he thinks, and we go back and forth like that a few times until we get this. We get it, in a good place, and then we send it off to the next part of the factory, which is like the tweaking and all of that stuff. But that's where I'm currently at with the music. I'm gonna start doing some more performing. Like I just got bit by the bug. I'm like, yeah, I want to rock some houses a little bit more.
Come to
Yeah,
Nashville. Come to Nashville.
I mean Nashville, I know, right? And
Yeah.
it really is popping there. I've got some people there as well that are yes. So Nashville is definitely on the radar for sure. Because Nashville is dope apparently. There's a
Yeah.
vibe there. I hear
Yeah.
good things.
I'll take care
And
of you if you're here.
I, I never thought to go there, even though like I watch all the the biopics and biographies and stuff about the musicians and stuff that came out of there, but nothing ever drew me until recently. I've kept hearing it over and over again. I was like, there's
Yeah.
definitely something in the soil there. So
So as far as collaboration goes, I don't know your experience, but for me, it's at the beginning, it was like, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. I've got to produce, I've got to edit, I've got to be the actor. I have to do everything because I couldn't really count on a lot of people, especially in LA, that said they were going to help. And then I realized they wouldn't. Um, so I don't know if that was your experience, but if it was, or if it wasn't, how has collaboration showed up in your life and helped you create, like you mentioned, in music?
I think it's a mixture. I feel like in the beginning it just is all you. That's just it's true. It's like the people who are supposed to support you the most don't, and I think that's just a part of the journey that they don't really emphasize in whoever they is, they don't tell you that. But I found that, it was about me believing in myself to such a degree that it didn't matter who collaborated with me or believed in me. And then like you build this fire or um, magnetism, right, of belief, and then the collaboration comes. And when it comes, being open to how that you will work with you, right? Because in the process of you building up, your steam and your self belief, you can get caught, right? And this is how I do things. So when you build up that magnetism and things are starting to come to you, now you have to be open to now be flexible and work with. Um, so yeah, I'm always looking to augment what comes through me by sharing it collectively. But I'm also very keen to make sure that I am being authentic to myself first, because then, like, whatever happens after that, I can be on board. You know what I mean? Like, fully, my energy's all the way there. Um, as opposed to doing things because they might end up a certain way or results like it's got to come from the gut, and that's all me. And then I think the phrase or the adage charity begins at home and then you spread abroad applies here, in terms of the art and collaboration.
Yeah. Um, this is kind of a selfish question that I've really enjoyed, like just recently in the last one or two interviews I've done about learning people's relationship to God, or
Hmm.
universe, or what that is for you.
Hmm.
I say it's selfish because I'm learning and exploring different people's paths and how, like you said, everything kind of comes together where people are the same in a lot of ways, even if they don't study the same books or look at things in the same way. Would you mind talking about God? Some people feel uncomfortable with that.
About my view of God,
Yeah.
to me God is everything, every single thing, the good, the bad, the indifferent. There's nothing, it's the source of creation, right? Like, and I think the large part of what makes the argument is that we're always dividing ourselves down the middle. Like, there's this dissociation, this separation thing that happens over and over between so-called good and so-called bad. It's like, oh, don't do the devil, but you must do Jesus. And I feel like what that's saying is like, use this one wing, but don't use the other. And so we have these people flopping around in their lives, feeling unfulfilled and not whole because there's an entire side of themselves that they're suppressing, right? And so I think, well, and that's what shadow work is about, right? So you start accepting the fact that we're not as noble as we think, we're not as good as we think, we're also this shit, you know what I mean? And then that acceptance actually raises the vibration of the so-called bad. So me, I do see God as everything. And people like Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung and Maslow and Hillman, and I mean, just countless other people have shown me. Joseph Campbell specifically, because he did The Power of Myth. And he went around the world and he studied all these different cultures and all of these different stories, these archetypes, and he found the similarity. He found the red cord that existed between all of them. And everybody was saying the same thing, whether they were in an environment where there were trees that covered them, like their relationship to the environment was sort of the same story as the people who lived in the mountains or the people who lived at the seaside. And that the creation story was just another way of interacting with the environment. But at the core, it was the same. And that's why there are formulas to movies, right? It's like we want to see this thing, we want to see this journey, this hero's journey. We want to see this conflict, this struggle, this overcoming, this victory. You know what I'm saying? And like that is a part of the collective zeitgeist. And so
What's
that
that word
helped
you
me.
said? The-
Zeitgeist
Could
just
you,
means
what
like
is that?
world thought. Just means like the world thought. It's a collective, like a morphic, like we're all on this vibe, like no matter what, like, Um, so yeah, that helped me to look at how we're the same, to also accept the differences and to see like how the so-called positive and negative are working together, and that you can't have one without the other. You need the grit in order to make the pearl. You have to have the foothold in order to build the muscle. You have to, everything is, and if you like, if you forsake one side for the other, you won't get anywhere. You literally go nowhere. And it's a binary universe, right? It's like everything is sort of split, but it's a universe. And like that has helped me. And like I guess the hardest part of it all is reconciling those things that were like, that's that, oh my God. Again, the things that make you gas. And I feel like the reconciliation for me is like, I just don't know shit. Like it's beyond me. Like this, the way how ordered this is, and like just I look at like mandarin ducks, then I look at an eagle, then I look at a guppy, and then like a snake, and then I look at like my index finger doing this, and I think of the complexity in just those few things, and I'm like, I don't even know how that happened. So like me trying to place this little judgment on this thing is dumb. The greatest thing I can do is accept and learn how to be with myself, which is all of this, right? So that's the largest practice for me, in appreciation. I'm sure you can take what I just said and like try to transcribe it in Buddhist in terms, and you can transcribe it in Christian terms and Islamic terms, all of that, in some form, shape, or fashion. But ultimately, my relationship to God is personal, and that's my daughter. Um, over there.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's my take. I mean, does that make sense to you?
of course. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Some people see God as like an personal, like kind of human entity form. Some people see it within each person and each thing. And, some people say universe, some people say nothing,
Yeah.
on how they
Yeah.
believe. Yeah. I heard one time too, I listened to this really awesome podcast called Wisdom of the Sages. It's a yoga podcast, and every episode they go over stuff from the Sri Bhagavatam, and I just love it. And they're like, there's a little ant that's crawling on his computer. And this little ant has no idea that one, he's on a computer, or two, that he's a part of this podcast that's creating all this stuff. And when you see it that way, when you see your little pinky move, or you see a snake on the ground, or it's like, how do we think that we're the top of everything?
Yeah.
It's
I don't,
like
yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't know, again, the veil that's above us that we can't see, that we have no understanding of, like the ant in a podcast.
The ends in the butt. Facts, though. That's the
Yeah.
100% facts. Like, and that's the curiosity that has to stay. We have to remain curious. Like, and I understand it. It's the human condition. Like, who doesn't? We want to feel secure. We
Yeah.
want to feel like okay. And so we need these answers to hold on to so we can feel secure. The answers usually trap us, but that's the goal, is to feel secure. And I understand why people latch onto them. But the curiosity and the unknown and the expansiveness, that's where the real joy and the joie de vivre is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that shit requires work, practice every day, working up to, open up, to be afraid, not to cringe or flinch, as I
Yeah.
say,
That
just
brings us
not
back
to
to your
flinch.
working out pattern, to be
Yeah,
open, to be
exactly.
afraid, and to see what that feels like,
Yeah,
and be
yeah,
okay with it and step into it stronger.
exactly. I want to look the demon right in the face and have regular breath.
Yeah. And also see it for what it is.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Not be moved. It's like, yeah, hi.
Yeah. Hey.
Hi. You know,
Well,
and
it's about time to wrap up, and your family's home, and that's probably way more important. Or so, just to wrap it up, do you have just like a small piece of advice for somebody that's getting into mindfulness or meditation, or into a creative path, even if you could give them one thing?
Um, I think I said it already, but I'll reiterate it. Like, learn to suffer, learn to enjoy the discomfort. You know, that's a part of the process. When it hurts, you know what I mean? Like that means there's rubber on the road. There's movement. You know what I mean? Hurt doesn't mean stop. Um, and there's also balance, right? You know, like we don't want everything to be unpleasant, but as long as there's a productivity, you know, and that's a personal thing that you have to figure out for yourself. But as long as there's productivity to it and a sense of being and stillness, you know, I think the suffering is warranted and needed, in fact, for your growth. You know,
Yeah.
you need it. Um, so don't fight it. And I feel like you're free when you actually accept it. Like you're literally free. There's nothing that can bother you at that point.
Yeah.
And so if there's anything to practice, it would be that.
Because then it shows up and you just say, hey, hi.
Hey, hi, how you
I
doing?
see you.
Oh,
I
right.
see
Because
you.
it's inevitable.
Let's
I
roll
don't want
around
to
in
be
the
like,
dirt together.
right, you know, I'm like pleasure, 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 pleasure,
Right.
pain, you know, like no, 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 no. I'm sitting there, you know, we're vibing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? We're out front, we're
Yeah.
up, you know, up close.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, just accept both wings so that you can fly.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate you taking the time, like, to be here with me. It means so much, and it's so wonderful to see your face again and get to talk to you. And it just means a lot to me. And I'm just so excited for you and your career coming from a space when we were together. Just feel like little babies in our career trying to push through and see what it was and learn. And yeah, it's just I get excited every time I see you do something new. I'm just so happy for you. And it's been really eye-opening. Thank you for sharing things and making my brain open up to new ideas.
That's what we do. We're just walking each other home, right?
Yeah.
Oh
Well, if you
yeah.
come
I
to
mean, it
Nashville,
is.
I'll take good care of you. So let me know if you want to come visit.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I get there, I'll definitely let you know, or before I get there, rather.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been great. Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me and giving me a space to talk about this stuff. You know, we're just creating more vibrations, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
that's really the goal.
And people will
Um,
find it that need it.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Thank you, Mustafa.
All right,
Bye.
then. Bye.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope you stick around for the meditation on the next episode. If you're interested in wellness coaching through a meditative lens or starting your own meditation practice with accountability, check out themeditationward.com. Give us a follow on Instagram at The Meditation Ward, and please like, review us, and share with your friends. See you soon.